Hi, Dogbert here at Eurogamer for Team Dignitas. I'm here with Simon from THQ. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for coming.
This is the first unveiling of Company Heroes 2. For the public at least. Yes. I think it's first time anyone's ever been able to play with it. How is it going down here?
Yeah, so this is our first public hands-on with the game. We've done a few press events prior to this, but it's really exciting to have our fans come down and get their hands on it for the first time. It's been going really well so far. First day of the show, obviously yesterday. Every one of our stations was full all day. That was the quiet day, so we're going to see how busy it gets at the weekends, but we've got some really great feedback. Fans seem to be really enjoying the game, and we're giving away early beta access keys to everyone who plays today, so hopefully those guys will be able to go away and keep playing, and we'll use that feedback and their input to polish and improve the game before we ship it.
Company Heroes, when it first came out, it came out of nowhere. It was one of those games that when it came out, everyone was just like, wow. Everyone thought RTS had gone kind of stale, and then Company Heroes comes out and it was just like, okay, this is impressive. It was near perfect in its approach to the cover, morale and so forth. What could you really change to this game to make it that awe-inspiring when it comes out again?
So yeah, that was kind of the target for Company of Heroes 1, and actually our internal goal, as lofty as it was to make the best strategy game ever. We wanted to basically see what strategy had done before and take that even further and improve it. So Company of Heroes 1 came out, still to this day, 6 years this month ago it launched, still to this day the highest rated strategy game out there. No one else has beaten us in terms of critical acclaim. So we really wanted to make sure the sequel could do it justice. So that's why it's been such a long time. That's the reason for this long hiatus. We wanted to wait until technology was in a position where we felt we could meaningfully move forward the series. So for us, Company of Heroes 2 isn't about completely changing, tearing up what we've done before and doing a completely different game. Company of Heroes 2 will feel and play like Company of Heroes 1. But for us, it's about more. It's making the game better in every way. You're going to see more graphical fidelity, you're going to see more destructibility, more strategic options, more technology, and more authenticity. And that's something that was really important for us, is just taking this game and enhancing it in every way we could, while still keeping the core essence of what makes Company of Heroes great.
Obviously, it takes part on the Eastern Front instead of the Western Front as last time. Is there a specific time when the game starts?
Yeah, so as you correctly identified, Company of Heroes 1 took place on the Western Front, a really short period of the war, a 3-month period between D-Day landings and Operation Market Garden. And Company of Heroes 2 we've actually taken to a completely different front now. We're on the Eastern Front. We felt that's a really significant part of the war, something that's not covered that much in video games and popular media, but a hugely impactful part of the war. Germany lost something like 90% of their combat casualties on this front. Company of Heroes 2 takes place in a much wider period of time. It's actually from 1941 to 1945, so early in the game the players are really going to be on the back foot. They're going to be retreating from the German army. It's going to be at that stage where the Russians were being pushed back and back and back. And towards the latter half of the game is going to be the march towards Berlin, where the players are actually taking the fight back to Nazi Germany. And then obviously in between it's going to be that pivotal turnaround, and I think one of the biggest comeback stories in human history. So a really exciting period of the war and a really exciting story for us to tell.
The Russian front was obviously well known for its ferocity and so on. Are you able to capture some of the absolute horrors that were envisaged in that war?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hugely impactful part of the war and a very ferocious one. I think, as I said earlier, 90% of Germany's combat casualties are on that front. I also think, if I remember correctly, there's something like 13 million combat casualties from the Russian point of view, and I think about 30 million overall. So a huge loss of human life, huge impact. It's something that we want to capture with this game. So there's a number of ways we're doing that. We're implementing some of the famous sort of orders and some of the famous sort of things that happened during that front. So for example, Order 227, that was at a point in the war where Russia was on the verge of defeat. They'd retreated and retreated and retreated, and they pretty much had no land left to give up. And Stalin ordered all Russian soldiers not to give up 1 inch of ground on pain of death. That was Order 227, so they would be shot by their own forces if they retreated. Taking away that option for retreat turned around the war for them, because suddenly the Russian soldiers had no choice but to charge and to face death against the Germans, or to face certain death from their own people, and that was a real turning point, something very important, something we wanted to bring to life in this game. Also, the weather was really impactful. I mean, Siberian winter of 1941, it reached something like minus 40 degrees. Human skin will freeze in a couple of minutes at that temperature. Fuel lines in tanks will freeze. A huge number of those casualties were due to the winter, and that's something we brought to life with our ColdTech weather system as well. So now the player's not just going to be playing against their opponent, but they're going to be playing against this kind of third player, this Soviet winter, which is going to be trying to kill both players. So again, a really exciting part of the brutality of the Eastern Front that we brought to life. And you're going to see that reflected in a smaller scale with things like the type of units you're going to be facing, the conscript troops, some of the penal legions, some of the things that really made the Eastern Front the Eastern Front.
The battles that took place during the Eastern Front were humongous. Company Heroes usually focuses more on small-scale skirmishes. How are you going to be able to capture, say, a Kursk or a Stalingrad with a game that's mostly focused on small-scale skirmishes?
Yeah, so you're totally correct. It was a hugely large scale. I mean, the level that we're showing here at this show, the Reserve Meat Grinder, it's actually a really sort of hardly known battle of the Eastern Front of World War II, but actually it was the Russians trying to stop the Germans from reinforcing the siege of Moscow. I believe something like 1 million Soviet soldiers died in what's considered a small insignificant battle of the war. But yeah, it's a large-scale conflict, but I think even in the biggest of conflicts, there's still that frontline action, those kind of the small groups of soldiers making a big difference, and that's what Company of Heroes is about. So you're going to be part of those big battles. We're going to take you to the big sieges, the big city battles, all of the things that Eastern Front's famous for. But instead of having to be controlling that entire army and those millions of soldiers, we're focusing on the small groups of heroes, the Company of Heroes, and that's something I think you can find in any conflict, any war, and that's what this game's about. It's not about huge blob armies, it's about making a difference with tactical strategies and controlling a small number of impactful units.
Has there been much change to the gameplay mechanics, as in the morale, the cover system, the way the units behave maybe in the winter?
So there are a few changes, nothing really drastic because we want the game to feel like Company of Heroes. We've enhanced and improved a few things. So for example, you talk about a cover system. We've enhanced the cover system. AI is much more intelligent. You won't get the random guy standing in front of the sandbags anymore. We've added new cover options. Cover will also play a role in on the winter maps. We've got a temperature gauge kind of where troops can actually get cold and die from the cold. So you can use cover as a windbreak now as well, which is a really interesting mechanic. We've given infantry the ability to vault over cover, so they're now the masters of tactical maneuverability. But the key essences are gonna play the same, just with the addition of our new functionality, things like ColdTech and TrueSight, really kind of enhance the gameplay engine.
Will there be many of the old famous vehicles from World War II, T-34s, Tigers, King Tigers, will they be making an appearance?
Yeah, you're going to see some of the most iconic vehicles. When we kind of set out to make this game, we kind of have to think about what units are interesting and also what units will make a varied and balanced kind of single player and multiplayer experience. So you're going to see some of the most famous and iconic sort of vehicles of the Soviet front. You're going to see obviously the T-34, probably the most famous tank of the war. You're going to see the larger KV-1s. You're going to see the Katyushas, the really interesting rocket trucks, sort of dubbed Stalin's organ. They're awesome. They're a lot of fun to play with. So you're going to see some of these really iconic units from World War II. Also important to note that the campaign Soviet versus Germans, the German army that fought on the Eastern Front was very different from the German army that fought on the Western Front. So you're going to see some significant changes with them as well. So some new units and some new doctrines and playstyles.
That's a good point. Doctrines and so forth, how have they been changed in this game?
So yeah, obviously they're back. We're making a few tweaks to those. We're not ready to go into a lot of details. We're going to be covering off all of that when we reveal multiplayer, but I think we've made some really exciting kind of changes and enhancements to to the way that our system works without changing the feel for it. We've been, over the last 6 years, taking on a lot of player feedback, seeing what our community's doing, keeping an eye on kind of the things that the community not only are asking for, but also that they're addressing themselves. Well, obviously, we've got a really vibrant modding community, so seeing what those guys are doing, seeing what's popular and what the fans really want, and then working out like what would meaningfully enhance and improve the experience to add to Company of Heroes 2 and try and, like single player, enhance it in every way we can.
How was, I mean, quite a while ago the idea of PC gaming kind of falling on kind of the wayside and not doing so well, but recently at this show especially quite a few big PC games have either been announced that they're coming back or have started to be showcased, like you're on. Do you think that it was premature of everyone talking about the death of PC gaming? I think it shows that, especially with Company Heroes, which is one of the top titles in RTS, a genre which has kind of been falling on hard times, PC gaming is back.
Yeah, I think it would be very naive to ever say that PC gaming was dying. I mean, when you look at some of the biggest games in the world, you look at some of the MMOs like World of Warcraft, that's probably the biggest game in the world. That's a PC-only title. You look at some of the units that PC games sell as well. I mean, the recent sales numbers for Diablo 3, I think that shows that box PC isn't dead. And then when you start looking at some of the free-to-play and some of the other titles out there, I mean, even within the strategy space, I've heard people say like, oh, that genre is dying, but I mean, you look at some of the strategy titles out there, recent releases by Blizzard, done incredibly well. The free-to-plays, like you think about strategy, realistically, like a game like a League of Legends could be counted as a strategy game, and they have millions and millions of subscribers for a PC-only sort of title. I think it was very premature for people to be writing the industry off. I think it's changed. Obviously, we've seen the advent of digital distribution. We've seen the box product kind of shift back, but it's by no means dead. And I think it's a vibrant and alive industry. There's a lot of great PC titles here, and there's a huge amount of interest in PC gaming still out there.
Will Company Heroes 2 have a lot of modding capabilities?
So we're not ready to go into full details on all of that yet. Obviously, we understand it's incredibly important to our audience, so we want to make sure that we implement as many features as we can. I can't guarantee right now what we'll have at launch, what we won't have at launch, but we're going to look to support this game in any way we can, and obviously we would love to support everything the community wants.
Obviously you can't dive into the multiplayer too much, but it was one of my favourite aspects of the game. I lost countless hours to the game. I'm just wondering what your thoughts, do you think it will be pushed a lot more than it was in the original Company Heroes?
Yeah, so multiplayer is a really important thing for our community. It's an important part of the Company of Heroes experience, and it's something that's really close to our heart. So we're putting a lot of focus into it. We're just about ready actually to move into beta. We've been working on all of the multiplayer functionality. We're going to start an early closed beta quite soon. We've been giving out early access keys to everyone who's played it at this show, and we're going to be giving a number of other opportunities for people to get into those betas. We're going to be using those beta phases to test, first of all, the functionality, the matchmaking, and then a lot of the new features that we're thinking about implementing, test them out, see how they work, see how the community resonates with them, and use that feedback to really balance and polish the game before it comes out. So we're looking to ship day one with a really polished multiplayer experience, and as any fan of Relic will know, we don't stop work as soon as the game ships. So we're going to support and we're going to work on that multiplayer experience, and hopefully be a true competitor for one of the best multiplayer experiences out there.
Has any focus been given towards a possible esports focus, competitive gaming with Company Heroes? Dawn of War, which is also a Relic game, was in WCG for quite a while, and a few well-known pro gamers used to play Company Heroes and Dawn of War. Has there been any focus given to that at all?
It's something we'd definitely love to see. I think we feel that Company of Heroes is a game that could resonate really well with esports. It's a very different type of game. A lot of the esports strategy games are kind of maths puzzles where you pretty much know what the result is before you even start the match because of the build order and the sort of APM and everything else. It's a very different experience. Company of Heroes is much more about the strategic choices that the commander's making on the battlefield, and especially with the asymmetrical armies. But it's something that we think could be really exciting. I mean, you think about real life sports, and you can watch the best football team in the world play one of the worst football teams in the world. But you know what? One time out of 100 when those two teams play, the bad team or the on paper bad team will actually end up winning, because it's unpredictable, and that's what makes sport exciting. And that's something I think with Company of Heroes as well, would make it perfect for esports, because players aren't going to necessarily know who's going to win. Those interesting on-the-fly tactics can really change up gameplay, and especially when you start throwing in weather and some of the other elements we've got, it throws in that real level of unpredictability. So a good player has to be adaptable, and something that could make a really exciting kind of match to watch. So yeah, we're really interested in that. We want to make sure that Company of Heroes is the best possible multiplayer experience for everyone, and we would obviously love for it to be an esports title.
Will Company of Heroes have any DLC payable usually?
Yeah, we're going to support the game post-launch. We've always supported our games post-launch with a host of additional content. We're going to have a number of sort of different enhancements, not different multiplayer maps, same basic model you saw with Dawn of War. We were always adding new maps, adding new content. So we'll have single player and multiplayer DLC. Some of it will be free, some of it will be premium. We're not ready to go into full details right now, but we intend on supporting this game post-launch with significant content updates.
One difficulty I've always found on Company of Heroes has always been the Allied side. It's always been well, you could say the good guys. The Germans have never had a story arc or a storyline. Is there a particular reason for that?
No, I mean, when we set out to make a single-player campaign, we have to decide what we think the most compelling story to tell would be. Company of Heroes 1, our real focus was kind of telling the story of the Allied forces, and it was kind of that Saving Private Ryan story. It was the D-Day landings through to Market Garden. It was a really exciting part of the war. It was kind of what we wanted to tell, and obviously that story makes a lot more sense from the Allied point of view. For Company of Heroes 2, again, like the incredible story we wanted to tell was the real resilience of the Russians and this refusal to be defeated. And one of the most impactful moments of the war, I think, if Germany hadn't made the decision to invade the Soviet Union while fighting on other fronts, and if some of the decisions Stalin made, however brutal and ruthless they were, we could have all lost the war if it wasn't for that. So we felt that was a really impactful story and something we really wanted to tell in Company of Heroes 2. So we're not ruling out any faction, and I think it's important to note that Company of Heroes 2 isn't about political ideologies. This isn't about pushing Stalin's ideology, the same as if we ever did a campaign that was solely German, it would not be about pushing Hitler's ideology. It's about the Company of Heroes, it's about the frontline decisions, it's about heroic acts. And you look within any army, there's always going to be those acts of heroism. So for example, Tales of Valor, which was our third expansion for the original game, there was actually a significant portion of that you were playing as a German tank commander. So you were playing as a member of the German army, and it was an incredible story. This guy, it was based on a real life story, and this one tank commander basically held up an entire Allied tank division on his own. He was hiding out in this little rural village, and he kept he'd destroy a tank, and then he'd like go and hide somewhere else and then destroy another tank. And an absolutely amazing feat of heroism, and that was the story we told with Tales of Valor. And so we're not ruling out any specific faction, but at the moment we kind of felt like this Soviet story was the one we wanted to tell for Company of Heroes 2.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I hope your game goes well.
Thanks.